Welcome to Evolutionary Men. I'm your host, Jason Lang. Let's get started. All right, and welcome back, everybody. I am super pumped today to be joined by Ryan Ginn, my friend, associate, and an incredible practicing couples therapist, men's coach, and educator on relationships and health and well-being that I've had the pleasure of knowing, 8 or 9 years now. Done a lot of deep work with myself, and really wanted to bring Ryan on here because in the work I do with men, kind of from the more coaching angle, a lot of times I'll work with guys in relationships and they'll get to a point where it's pretty clear the couple needs some outside support. And either they've had therapy before or about to look for a therapist for the first time and just don't know where to start in terms of how to find a good couples therapist. And I thought, knowing you personally, as someone I think is a great couples therapist, maybe you could bring some tips and ideas for things to look for and really how couples therapy can serve a couple and really kind of take it from there. So first off, welcome.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, super cool to be here. Yeah. You know, as you're speaking, I started having flashbacks to my first experiences in couples therapy, and they were not excellent, shall we say. And then I'm really actually just in the moment really realizing that there is a unspoken, I don't hear it spoken very much, truth that many therapists think that they can handle couples because they had some training, grad school, and maybe, did one training and with the Gottmans, and so they're going at it. And they don't actually have a strong enough framework for dealing with the complexity of what's happening in a couple system. And yet the thing that they're really well intentioned, and they're maybe seeing mostly individuals, and it's a different animal. A couple therapy session is a different animal. They end up leaning on their, primary skills as an individual therapist, which is, listening, reflective listening, validation. And they don't come in with a strong frame of expectations of the couple, of each individual in the couple. And we could get into those, but just as a starting point, I reflect back and I think, God, I had, with my wife, I had couples therapy experiences that wherein the therapist actually would take sides, either, my side or my wife's side. And of course, either way, that just feels not right. But, individuals, especially in a we'll say not fully developed, like not a strong, high functioning couple system, are going to come into couples therapy already kind of ready to make their case. I mean, entrenched, right? Yeah, just not, sadly, 90% of the time, that's how a couple presents to me, right? They're both they're looking at me like I'm the adjudicator of right and wrong, true and false. And that I'm just going to say, okay, well, he certainly is the one that is the victim here. And you need to start to shift your whole thing so that he feels better. This is sort of the implicit expectation they have of me. And we both know, right? I mean, we're smiling like in what world is that going to play well? Right. Yet it's really remarkable. I mean, the insistence on that, on treating the couples therapist that way.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe just to backtrack a little bit and just really, really answer this question of like how to find a good one. And kind of getting at it in terms of one that actually has a frame and you feel it. You want to feel like when you do, your most any high quality couples therapist is going to do a screening call with you or a meet and greet, right? Just to see if it's a good fit. And you want to feel from them that they are somebody that you feel like you can really learn from, like that they have a quality. This is somewhat abstract, but I think you all can get this, of leadership. Like they're not just reflecting back to you what's happening there. They're hearing you, deeply hearing you, but then they're coming back to you with, okay, so this is what we do. When you come into my office, we're going to be learning this. I'm not going to actually put up with a lot of acting out, right? I'm not, that's not in your interest. It's nearly unethical for me just to have you play out um, individualist, selfish, super self-centered, victim stories in the sessions. This is not going to work for you. I want to help you. I want to help. You want to hear some of this kind of languaging. I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Where they're going down the middle. They're holding you both accountable as two adults that are choosing to come into this consensual relationship as leaders, as right, as like empowered, high, agency adults that need some skill development, right? Um, and I think that's, yeah. I don't know, I'm curious if you have any kind of
Well,
curiosities.
yeah, I just to kind of pause and reflect so far. So two big things I'm already taken away. One, I'm just so glad you spoke to that. You, just because someone is like a great individual therapist doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate to couples work, right? It can, but it's not. It doesn't necessitate that. And I do see this showing up where oftentimes when I'm working with guys and couples, the couples therapist ends up coming from they had been working with one of them individually, and it's like, oh, why don't you bring your partner in? Because then we can da da da. But just that admission that yeah, it's a different skill set, right? And you can be a great individual couples therapist, but it takes a specific kind of training that I know you've received, and um, to be able to work with the partnership itself and handle suddenly, there's twice as much complexity. You're not just dealing with one person's psyche, you're dealing with two people's psyche, and then how they interact with each other, and like you said, the beliefs they have coming in, their entrenchment and whatnot. So I just really want to reflect that, guys, that just to really hear that just because they're a great individual therapist doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a great couples therapist. And now, would you say like uh, in like, let's say that intake interview, would that be the kind of thing someone should even ask? Like, what kind of training do you have in terms of working with
Certainly.
couples, or like history or things like
Mm-hmm.
that? Like to actually
Right.
get in there and and see, are they just kind of moonlighting in this, or is this something they take on pretty seriously because it really does have a different skill set and capacity? So that's something you could ask a potential therapist, right? Is like, yeah, like how much experience do you have working with couples? What training do you have? Because I think um, that just gets right into the second thing you named that I think is, I hear this from guys so often where they're like, we go in there. I was telling you this before we chat. It's like we go in there and basically we just kind of emotionally vomit and dump each week. And the therapist kind of listens to us and reflects and then sends us home. And we're just like coming in every 2 weeks. But where it gets really frustrating for a number of the guys is it doesn't feel like the therapist has a plan, Like
Mhm.
they're not actually, and I think you just said it in a beautiful way. Like they're not actually leading us, right? Whereas we're actually coming to you, couples therapists, because we don't know what to do, right?
Mhm.
We're actually we can't lead ourselves out of this. So we need that. And so finding someone who has that leadership quality of, okay, you guys are coming in. I'm going to help you take responsibility. We're going to make a plan and we're going to kind of go on a journey, it sounds like, from
Mhm.
kind of A to B to see what's really going on and what's possible here.
Mhm.
Is that kind of fit with what you mean by leadership
Yeah, that's a
and
great.
frame?
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it, or kind of further elucidate it for the guys out there. You really, right? I mean, you're often spending several $100s for this, right? I mean, it is not a place to just come and vent. It's a place to train. I think a couple therapist would be better called, a relational, like, literacy trainer. Like, it's like a training experience, right? Because your patterns, right? That are, really deeply grooved in, because we're talking about the primary attachment system, right? I mean, just a short dip into attachment theory here, right? When you're in a long-term primary pair bond, as we call in, like, in my, school of couples therapy, it turns on this part of your brain that is really the same brain that you utilized in your primary relationships, like your primary caregivers, right? It's that deep, it's that automatic, it's that full nervous system. It's in no way a mental thing that you turn on. It's automatic. And
Yeah.
so that's a tall task to repattern, needless to say. And yet, so therefore you need a facilitator that sees that that's the work at hand. We're not going to just talk abstractly about our problems and our challenges. We have to turn and face each other in real time and get some coaching, some training, um, to try something different, because what you've done has not fucking worked. So why would you keep
Exactly.
doing it in front of somebody that in paying money for that? I mean, I say that with also compassion, because it's an understandable thing to do, especially if you don't have
Yeah.
someone saying, like, we don't do that. Like, that's not what we're doing here. Do you want to learn? Do you want to? Let's try something else. And so I should just, briefly describe, my school, the psychobiological approach to couples therapy. It's not I mean, the school I'm trained in, PACT, formed by Stan Tatkin, is, and other schools do this too. EFT, Gottman's do some of this too. The bigger schools, um, do this experiential learning, right? This, based on the premise that if you don't practice something in stress, it won't translate, to your everyday life. You know, actually have to, have to put the couple under stress, which, turning and facing each other and saying, talk about your money challenges. I want to see you talk about what you're going to do to move forward. Just do one, pick, come to one thing that you're going to do together to move towards a healthier relationship with money as a couple. Go. I want to see you do that. That's stressful, right?
Yeah.
Um, and yet, that's what you want to use someone like me for, right? Is to get that auxiliary regulation to your nervous system, so that you don't just pop out and just revert back to blame
The
and
old patterns.
argumentation,
Hmm.
shutdown, stonewalling, all the things. You stay in a relatively regulated state that can actually collaborate and be creative and be empathetic. All the things you need to be to function well. Like you're doing hard things. You're raising kids. You're managing a household, right? You're dealing with like ill, parents. Like they're really doing difficult things. So you need to be able to be regulated, empathetic, like take the other person's perspective, come up with suggestions that both take care of you and the other person at the same time. That's high level executive functioning. And one doesn't do that because one is reverting back to their their family of origin stuff and their, and so you need help to shift that pattern, to start to see it. It's not like it's going to go away. You're like breathing through it. You've got someone like me that's got your back saying, try that again. You're on the right track, right? It's like a trainer would, right? Just almost there. Just take a moment though. What's going on for you right now? That's like, oh, I'm just feeling like really, part of me is feeling really frustrated that she doesn't get, okay, well, and then I can offer some of that as a bridge. Like I can offer some of that empathy strategically so that they can calm down and give it another go and keep practicing, like staying in their adult, collaborative, to, perspective taking brain.
Okay, so this is so big. I really want to highlight what you're saying there, that like actual skill building and training should be happening in the session, right? So that maybe one way to frame what I've kind of heard clients talk about is we just come in and we kind of recapitulate the pattern, right? It's like, I do this, you do this, I do this, and there just happens to be someone witnessing and reflecting that, but they're not necessarily intervening to help us in the actual session try something new to build a new capacity that we then, go back and try to keep bringing, it sounds like, but in between sessions. But that if you're not learning something about yourself or a new skill or something like that, it's probably not going to be very productive long term. And so it really takes that active leadership. And I think you're kind of pointing to the sweet spot of evoking the stressful situation for the couple. But then what is different is you, right? The actual regulated nervous system of the therapist, who can then kind of bring the extra care in the moment to start to implement some of those small tweaks or create some of those moments of self-awareness, so then you can kind of start to pattern things or try things differently. But that if you're not training and building that skill capacity, it's probably not going to actually be that effective for you long term. And that's where I think I have, we've been seeing someone for like 2 years. Like 2 years, wow, and has anything changed? No, nothing's changed. Like we just kind of come in and do the same thing because that process isn't actually happening in a sense. So I really love that you highlighted that. And if there's one word, I certainly know men can get behind, it's training. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. We're going to train. We're going to relationally train to build these new skills and capacities, which it's not so we're going to talk about what's, broken or messed up about us, which, it can be part of there, but it gives it a slightly more, I would say, alluring framing for certain men. That's like, okay, yeah, I want to learn how to do this better. It's not that we're never going to fight, but let's learn how to fight better, or let's learn how to talk about money better, or let's learn how to do these different things better. So looking for a therapist who has that strong leadership capacity, frame, ability, I imagine, to hold themselves. I've honestly been shocked, man, at how often guys have shared, like when their therapist gets triggered, they can like hear their therapist is getting upset by something, which then I'm like, how do you, that doesn't work, and I'm sure it happens. It's part of being human, but if it's showing up in the session, I think something's maybe not quite going the way it should. Okay, great. But this is awesome. Let's just keep this train going.
Yeah. One other thing to really name it, or maybe to double click on, is that the training is mostly on the nervous system level. right? Because that's the foundation of our behavior. I mean, if you're not regulated in a moment, in an interaction, you're not going to be able to listen, empathize, and be true, collaborative. Just kind of re repeating that again, because people come into, I mean, we're getting more into not just how to choose a therapist, but how do you orient yourself? How do you know? Because if you want to make the most out of this, like help the therapist out by like reframing your, like reorienting yourself. Like I'm going in here and I'm actually going to be expecting, similar to I would like a training session, like I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to be managing the natural impulse to do the easy thing, which would be to blame, to shut down, to talk over, and I'm going to stay in the discomfort of what I'm feeling and be willing to be, to build, a tolerance in this container for the inherent discomfort of creating a life with another person. I think that's just to boil it down, that the biggest issue in any couple is that you're a human being that feels really frustrated, disappointed in this other that isn't cooperating with you the way you want them to on a daily basis. And you want to just tell them to just change. If you just did this, then I wouldn't feel this.
Yeah.
And it seems so simple. I could just tell you, maybe, and you don't listen. So I'm going to maybe do it in a stronger way. And, and this is the human condition that we're contending with and that we're trying to train a person or a couple out of. But I'm just saying, like, to come in and with a humility that, okay, like I may be really successful in so many of my other relationships, in life in general, like, and I'm really, an intelligent person, but there's a way in which, couples work is, as you know, Jason, is the ultimate humble pie. It just is.
Yeah.
You think you've done so much work. Oh man, I've done 100 ayahuasca ceremonies and, I've done this, that, and created 3 companies. And then you just feel like a baby sometimes. He's
Totally.
not getting what
Yeah.
he wants. It's hard to, so coming in with that, that recognition, that it's going to be but it's going to be really difficult. And yet the other side of that is this opportunity to heal and repattern some of your most basic injuries, right? The injuries that took place for you as a child that you didn't, of course, have the psychological, emotional capacity to to deal with or to confront. Now you go into couples work and you have some auxiliary help to actually become like an advocate, like an effective one for your emotional needs in real time, right? And when it's like really hard, like, oh, I have to take care of this person. I have to like listen to them and help them feel safe and present what I need in a way that they can really hear it. Oh man.
Well, that's a great, I think, just to highlight too, right? So don't expect it to be easy, right? Whoever you pick, you got to come in humble and be willing, with a certain willingness to learn and know it's going to be hard. And actually, that's kind of the point, is to get into the hard state, but with the presence of someone that can help you through it in a sense. and that it's not about just finding someone who's going to make you feel better. Right.
Right.
It's
Or
about actually moving
vindicate
the
your,
needle.
you too, right?
Yeah.
You know, because we all want, I mean, it's just so human. I mean, we want to be, because we experience ourselves, right, as the protagonist in the whole, we can't help it.
Yeah. So true.
You might get a little bit of that, but that's it's not going to be the goal. Or validation. You might not get vindication, but some validation.
Yeah. One question that's coming up for me that I often kind of talk to guys about, but I'd be curious on your take. Like, sometimes, guys will come in and there's something going on in the relationship, and they start to talk to a therapist or something, and the feeling they get transmitted from the therapist, or even just they implicitly kind of absorb, is that it's going to take a really long time for things to change or make movement. Like, like, what's your sense? I'm not saying that everything's fixed, but like, should progress start to become kind of visible fairly fast if you're really doing effective work with a therapist in session? Like, does it take 3, 6, 9 months, or like what do you see like in the best kind of case scenarios in terms of what's possible in terms of timelines?
I think you should see some shifting. Yeah, certainly within the first few months, with a big caveat. In my years of working with couples, the biggest factor is both of their willing, both of them if they both simultaneously have a willingness to really be more mindful, more intentional, like practice the skills. In other words, not fall prey to their own human tendency to blame, and to go into the past and keep replaying times at which they were hurt, as one that that doesn't see their own part in it, of course. Right? If they really say, there's a kind of turning over a new leaf, like, hey, if the couples that stop seeing me, which is the actual goal, within a few months, or maybe come every quarterly or something.
Yep. Get top ups.
Right. Are the ones that have that mindset, like, hey, we both over the years have done what happens to couples, started to get sloppy, start to automate the other person, not deeply listen to them, get more self-oriented, not paying attention to the health of the couple system. And here we are. We're hiring this person to come in and train us to, like, develop new patterns, new principles, practices, and we're going to do them because we recognize that if we don't, we will revert to our conditioning, which has not worked. In other words, to boil it down, they've abandoned the blame game. They've just said that's a dead end. Right? And I'm not going to litigate. I'm not going to try to litigate the past. It never works. I'm going to save you, the couples therapist, some time in that way. And I'm going to say, I want to learn how, and in real time, I want to learn. And then I'm going to practice outside of here. How do we create a culture that is increasingly sensitive, creative, affectionate? That covers most of it, right? I think
Yeah.
right, that they're
Sign me up.
yeah, they're doing that, and they're taking it up.
Yeah.
And there's always a mystery of, like, well, what does it take? What does it take for a person to actually, like, step into that level of, like, leadership? I don't want to insinuate that there isn't some importance of doing some repair around, and of course, if there's betrayal and that's an asymmetric situation and has a different process. But if there's been hurt, there can be a process, but it has to be done in a way that's constructive, not just I'm going to dump this whole boatload of things that you've done and expect you just to sit there and say you're right, I'm wrong, I'm the one who's messed up this whole relationship and you're amazing.
Well, that sounds. I just want to double click that as another maybe awareness point as a man and his partner are going in. If sessions are becoming only litigating the past, that's probably a good indicator that it's maybe not the right fit, or there needs to be an intervention to have a conversation with the therapist of, okay, if we're litigating the past so that we have more resource to work what's happening right now, okay, that's one thing. But if you're just coming in week after week and pouring through the past, but not doing that process you named previously of kind of skill building and working with things in real time, it's not going to move the needle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the list is endless, right?
Right.
I mean, you could go back home and journal every day and find, oh yeah, I forgot about this time my partner did it, and this time
Yeah.
my partner did it. I got to clear that, and I got to clear that. And again, it's not to minimize those things. There are times I think they need to be cleared, but sessions shouldn't just be about litigating the past. It needs to be paired with some kind of real time, forward facing work, I think is what I hear from you. Because otherwise, you're just going to get stuck in these loops forever.
Yeah.
And the willingness to kind of let go of some of that in a sense and be like, okay, yeah, I feel that, but I'm committed to showing up and doing the hard work now and facing forward together around this. Um, Sounds like it is kind of needed from the partners, as from the couple as well. It can't just all be put on the therapist. There has to be that willingness to kind of come in and take some responsibility and to move forward in some sense. And then if you're with a couples therapist who has that frame, like a structure, some leadership, they're going to actually take you through, things can start to change. Like it doesn't have to take years, right? You should, it's not that everything's going to be fixed, but if I'm hearing you right, certainly within a couple months, you should be feeling like you're having some different outcomes to some of the same situations, right? Okay, we got into but hey, actually, we reconnected in 20 minutes this time rather than 2 days of ice cold silence. Like that's movement, right? That's okay. Things are moving here. So you want to actually be looking for that kind of movement, uh, you know, not necessarily after the first session, but fairly soon, even if they're micro steps that, okay, yeah, we're in the game with each other here and learning is happening. So, and I imagine just as a couple, that's going to make it a lot more inspiring to keep coming back too. If you actually feel like there's offline movement outside of the sessions that are paying off the time you're spending in the session.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that's the best trajectory. I love the couples that are taking it up. They're coming back and they're saying, oh, we really doing well. And then we hit this point, and let's break it down together. Like they're treating it like it's a mutual learning lab about their relationship and their own personal kind of unresolved or, somewhat, yeah, they're, like I said before, their injuries from childhood, past relationships that are surfacing, causing pain, because that's what our system does. It just does project onto our partner. But there's a way in which we can use that and and then as an opportunity to repair, to repattern something, right? Like, mhm. Yeah, but I would say, just to in all honesty, I think that is one of the most tricky things about especially longer term couple, if they've accrued a lot of unrepaired experiences and they've reviewed them in their brains and, like I said, and they're the protagonist in these memories that are not reality, not the full reality. And right, you can imagine they come in with hundreds of well grooved in memory stories of having been uncared for, slighted, dismissed, all that. It's it's very difficult for them to not hear, hey, let's just move forward as a dismissal of all of that. So we have right. So you want to, coming back to what are you looking for in a couple service, you want someone that that has both the ability to really hold and validate and facilitate a constructive and structured repair for some of those things, um, as well as the um, finesse to encourage the movement forward, the building of wins, so that the couple, the marriage starts to have some morale to it. Because you need a blend, and um, and in that way, I think of like couples therapy, relationship coaching as an art, right? The coach has to come in there, really feeling into this culture here and seeing like, hey, the morale's kind of low. We need to create something to help, build a win for them. It's got to be back and forth, right?
Yeah, I mean yeah, that feels like another thing to just really highlight for guys like the yeah, you you want your therapist to helping you find some wins to keep that forward momentum going. And that if if they don't have the capacity to do that, that might be one of those times you consider revisiting. Like, okay, we need to either talk to them about, hey, we need to try some different strategies here, or potentially find a different person to work with that can help you start to experience some of these wins to kind of, yeah, get that feeling of, hey, our team's turning it around. Hey, we can do this, right? It's a long season ahead, but hey,
Hmm.
things are changing.
Yeah. 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 And just to be clear too, I mean the reviewing past experiences needs to be done in a very clear way. One subject, one experience at a time, um, owning one's own personal experience, bringing in some level of humility, like this is what I remember happening and how it affected me, so as to not throw out a bunch of bait for the other to like, well, that's not exactly how it happened. Like, that's not the point. Like I have this memory in me that I'm still that and and I have pain here. So I mean that's where right, like quality couples therapy is so helpful because it's right. You've no doubt everyone's experienced this. It's so hard to hear a mischaracterization of of oneself as you experience it, right? You're like, I didn't say it that way. I didn't yell, or I didn't just slam the door. Right? We get into this back and forth and this argumentation about what happened versus an actual repair and an acceptance that this is what you remember happening. And that sounds so painful. And I'm so sorry that that happened. How can we how can we put it to rest? What do you need? But you get to both take turns, though, is also the thing. People get pretty like fearful that this is going to be a one-way thing where I'm the one who's doing all of the, you know, kind of repair work.
Yeah, and I mean, would that be another thing even to kind of keep an eye out for? Meaning, a therapist who's willing to intervene to sometimes maybe make space for the more quiet partner or the partner who isn't necessarily coming in with the big list, um, to kind of, because I could just see pretty easily, it getting one-sided in certain scenarios if the therapist isn't, I guess, bold enough to kind of
Mhm.
interrupt sometimes and create the space for the other side.
Yeah, definitely. Right. There's a there's a boldness that's necessary to, and yet also some obviously some tact and some finesse to interrupt or to shift and to call, name something. We say in pact, we make a call or we make a statement that goes down the middle, that that kind of interrupts a pattern. Like, for
Mm,
example, the two of you don't seem to know how to really take turns. And then they just kind of sit with it and kind of like, huh, yeah, you're kind of
yeah.
right. It kind of exposes this pattern they're in where one, and that's on them both, right? What's up with the guy that's just sitting there taking it all? Like, how he doesn't have a skill to say, hey, honey, I really want to hear you, but I need you to pause so I can just really take in what you just shared and figure out what you need so that you can feel safe again. He doesn't have that skill. Anyway, right? So, yes, you want that level of the boldness to interrupt a pattern that's just playing itself out. It's like it's not only doing no one good. I mean, it's doing more detriment because you're just grooving in a dysfunctional pattern.
Boom. Feels huge. Because we don't want to do that. It's already hard enough.
Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, any other tips that come to mind in terms of, kind of low hanging fruit for couples or men to be on the lookout for or know how to ask for?
Hmm. I think men, myself included, are really motivated by being by challenge, but yet uh, obviously a challenge though that has a clear path, like a structure and like a set of skills that you're developing and some level of progress. And yeah, just invite the men out there to see couples work as that, as something that is essential to their well-being, to their success as a person in this world. It's not, if it feels super abstract and content, just kind of contemplating the patterns of the relationship, and it doesn't feel visceral and it doesn't change how you feel in your body in the next, interaction at all, then it's not the right and fit, and you should trust that. You need something else. You need something that's changing your wiring, your somatic response when you're under stress with your partner. You need that. You deserve that. It's out there for you. You just got to hunt it down and say, I want that. Don't be on your heels. Don't be, dragged to the couples therapy. That's a bad place to start from, obviously. come in there with like, yes, I want to learn how to handle this situation with you, and we need some help. Let's find a hired gun to like sort this out. It's not going to be forever. Like, I would love that kind of attitude.
That feels, yeah, really good. And I imagine really empowering to actually step into as well. Because
Yeah.
oh, yeah, okay. It's not that the session has to happen to us. Like, oh no. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, cool. Let's get hungry, get in there,
Mhm.
get dirty and learn some skills so we can up level. And yeah, I really want to highlight what you said of kind of maybe another thing to look out for in a sense would be if it's just staying, if your sessions are just staying in the realm of the conceptual and not actually getting into the somatic rewiring of, yeah, what do you do when she says the thing and it reminds you of the time when you were young or whatever, and your whole nervous system goes into red alert. Like that's that's where the needle is really going to move when you're getting into that real experiential stuff. And if you're just kind of talking about the patterns, you're not really going to get that ability or have that opportunity to train your nervous system like you're talking about. Like, again, just want to highlight what Ryan said earlier. You can kind of think of this as nervous system training. Good couples therapy is just training you two to work with your nervous systems so you can stay on the same team and keep moving towards the things you want, right? Without some of these different patterns from childhood and from, frankly, just being humans getting in the way. But that it takes that like visceralness. I think that was maybe a word you said too. Like it should be a pretty visceral experience of like, whoa, okay, yeah, this is the thing that's happening, and you're helping me track what's happening and getting the opportunities to actually try some different things in this state while we're in the session together, because that's already going to be plenty hard compared to, or I mean, that's already hard enough having the support of the therapist in the room, let alone, being expected to just go figure that out alone after the session. Like, no, it needs to be happening when you're in that kind of sacred, very limited time frame in some sense.
Mhm.
Like there's, compared to how many hours you're in a relationship with your partner, coming in for
Mhm.
a session once, twice, 3 times a month, it's not that much. So you really want to make sure something is happening in that
Mhm.
space. And, I think if we're kind of highlighted anything here in some sense, if it's not, it's
Mhm.
probably not the right fit for your couple, and the limited resource you have would probably be better invested finding someone else who can get you more into that um, really visceral place where you're doing the hard work in a session.
Totally. Yeah. Well said.
Awesome. Well, anything else last come to mind for you here before we close out, just in terms of the topic so far?
No, I think we covered some good ground there. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what is the best way for, anyone listening to kind of get to know you more, keep up with you, and some of your offerings for couples and the work you do?
Yeah. You can find me Ryan Ginn underscore on Instagram and ryanginn.com, Ginn. And also doing a collaboration with one of our mutual friends, Luke Adler. And that's on beingmen.net, where we do courses for men in long term relationship. And yeah, I would also want to offer that if you're looking for a couples therapist in your neighborhood, the PACT Institute, PACT, just Google that, and you can find someone highly trained in a lot of stuff what we're talking about.
A directory I often refer guys to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, just kind of what he's highlighting there is, it's going to be really useful if the person you work with has some specific training for couples. and kind of has a trajectory, a sense of kind of where to take you, right? If they don't have a sense of where to take you, I would take yourself elsewhere. Put that, maybe bottom line that in some sense. But awesome, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for showing up and the work you do. It's always so incredible. I learn so much every time I receive your gifts and your education and your brotherhood. So it's always a pleasure, and we'll definitely have to do this again sometime, my man.
Sounds good, Jason.